Say Christ is Lord. Say Christ is Lord. Say it!
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Unpopular Opinion, and today I'm going to be discussing the 1973 movie, The Exorcist.
What an excellent day for an exorcism.
And in this video, I'm going to be explaining why I think this movie is a masterpiece. Guys, I'm going to be honest here. I've probably seen this movie over 20 times.
Really?
I love this film. It is one of my personal favorite movies, and guys, this is an immortal movie. This movie will live forever. But for the purpose of this review, keep in mind I'm actually going to be talking about the extended director's cut, so just keep that in the back of your mind. So the movie was directed by William Friedkin, which is kind of cool, because in my previous video we talked about his other really iconic movie, The French Connection.
Hold it!
So anyway, guys, the movie is about a famous movie star whose daughter gets possessed by an ancient Mesopotamian demon and her subsequent efforts to find a cure for her daughter.
It just so happens that somebody very close to me is probably possessed.
After medical science and psychology fail, she turns to a priest who's having a crisis of faith. So this priest who's having the crisis of faith, he has to investigate and he has to prove that there's possession, so he's got to build a case for it, and then he has to assist in her exorcism.
Since the day I joined the Jesuits, I've never met one priest who has performed an exorcism, not one.
Now, honestly, guys, I don't see this really as a horror movie. Now, I know this is a hot take, and this might sound crazy. I usually get a lot of flack for saying this, but just hear me out. Hear me out. I don't really see this as a horror movie. I see this as a legitimate Christian film. Yes, I know there's obscenities, extremely disturbing content, and graphic imagery, but if you look at the movie closely, you can actually see a very profound Christian message. So this atheist woman goes to great lengths to find a cure for her daughter after she becomes possessed by a demon, and it gets to the point where she's exhausted all of her options. And even the doctors and the shrinks, even they say you should probably find a priest at this point.
Of course, there is one outside chance for a cure.
Do you have any religious beliefs?
So she turns to the Catholic Church for help, despite the fact that she doesn't have any religious beliefs. And meanwhile, Father Karras, he himself is struggling with his own faith. He has a crisis of faith, but when his mother dies, that's when he loses his faith. And after his experiences with Reagan in trying to help her despite having lost his faith, he still goes through with assisting in an exorcism. Then he sacrifices himself after allowing the demon to possess him.
Come into me! God damn you!
Giving up his own life, but saving Reagan in the process. After which, he reconciles with God, he regains his faith, makes peace with God, and defeats the demon.
Is she gonna die?
No.
The devil doesn't win, and God triumphs in the end. Where medical science and psychology failed, the Catholic Church succeeded. Armed with renewed faith, Father Karras managed to save the girl. Now, honestly, with all of those things established, him sacrificing himself, reclaiming his faith in God,
Having offended God with all the sins of your past life.
a woman turning to religion when secular means have failed her. What could be more Christian than that? And in that one scene in the director's cut, Marin and Karras, they're talking and they're like, well, why did the demon choose this girl, this poor innocent girl? What's the point? And the response was, well, it's to make us despair, it's to make us turn our back on God, because if this girl falls to the power of the demon, then it's going to make us turn our back on the Almighty. And in the end, that didn't work. She was saved, and this potentially opened up the McNeil family to coming to Jesus and perhaps finding their own faith. Now, to be honest, I haven't seen the sequels. Like, I haven't seen The Heretic. I watched the third movie, and I didn't see the new one, so I don't know if that's the case, but the potential is there. Like I said, to sum up, when medical science and psychology failed, they directly told her to go to the Catholic Church, and in the end, that's what happened. The demon lost, God prevailed. So, with all of that, that is why I truly believe that The Exorcist is a Christian movie disguised as a horror film, because faith conquers all, and wins. Now, you can argue and debate that all you want. You might think I'm crazy. You can comment that below, go for it, but that's my opinion on the matter. Now, guys, just as a reminder, I would like to say, if you're enjoying this video, if you're liking it so far, do me a favor, hit that like button, smash the subscribe. Remember, guys, it's totally free. Costs you nothing to do so. Believe it or not, just one like can go a long way and really help me out. So I would really appreciate it if right now you hit that like button, you hit that subscribe, and also check me out on Instagram. That's going to be linked below, but let's get back into the video. I also really love how they introduce us to Father Karras in this movie. So when we first see him, we see him in the crowd of spectators and extras when Burke Dennings is filming his movie. And then we see him walking away and he's kind of looking depressed, after which it shows him really troubled. He's in a train station and he declines to help a homeless man.
Would you happen all over, boy?
Which this just shows that he's facing some form of stress. All of this sets up in a genius way the subplot of Karras and his mother and then her dying, which is really like the main source of him losing his faith and not wanting to be a priest anymore. And plus that conversation between him and his superior about him losing his faith, that was a really hard-hitting scene.
I think I've lost my faith, Tom.
I felt that. I felt it. It was really hard-hitting and a very impactful scene. And plus, that dream sequence he had where he saw his mom, that was just like really eerie and creepy, and it just shows you the mindset of the guy. Not to mention all of those scenes where you see him doing mass. It's got the close-up to his face, and you can tell he's not into it. He's just repeating the steps. He's going through the motions because he's lost his faith and this means nothing to him. That adds brilliant layers to the character and to the film overall. Like the movie showing Father Karras, a Catholic priest, as a normal person with normal emotions. That was pretty interesting because it's easy for Catholics to forget that clergy are just normal people too. They have personal lives. They have feelings just like the rest of us. So like those scenes where he's visiting his mom or he's like shoving past those mental patients. He's all angry like he wants to visit his mom. He's like, get off of me, and he's pushing these people. Or he's boxing in the boxing gym. Like, you see this guy not only as a priest, but as an ordinary man, and it's pretty easy for Catholics to forget that priests are just like us too. It's just very relatable, so that familiar relationship that we have with the character, it just serves us well when the exorcism scene comes, because we know the guy, we know what he's going through, and it all just builds for the climax. Now, guys, that opening sequence in Iraq, whew, that was really cool. That was one of the best parts of the movie. Like, it's an interesting sequence because it establishes the mood for the rest of the film. That whole sequence in the beginning was done perfectly. Like, when you see them at that archaeological dig site and you see the shot of those people working and the camera's panning and Friedkin just speeds up the footage so you just see like this whole archaeological site. When they're digging up Mesopotamian ruins and relics. Guys, that was amazing, because another reason why I like this scene so much is because it appeals to a very specific fascination that I have. You guys, I think at this point you know that I'm a history geek and I'm training to become a historian, and Mesopotamia is beyond fascinating. Super interesting. World's first civilization, oldest civilization in human history, and that was just wow. Amazing. Plus, them discovering that amulet and the statue of Pazuzu, not only was that amazing from a film point of view, like as a cinematic thing, but it also from a historical one. Now, this is a quick tangent about the demon, the villain in the movie. It has nothing to do with the review, but if you're interested in the history, you might want to stick around because this is going to be interesting. So, the demon in the movie it's not mentioned. You see the statue of it. It's mentioned in the book. If you've read the book, you'll know, but it's not verbally said out loud. The demon is Pazuzu, an ancient Mesopotamian demon. And what I find fascinating about this is that was actually a real figure in Mesopotamian mythology, like a real figure in the Mesopotamian religion. And Pazuzu was a demon. However, the thing about demons in ancient Mesopotamia, it's not the same as how we view demons. Like, if you come from Western civilization, predominantly Christian for over 1,000 years, America, we live in a Christian nation, we view demons as opposers to angels and minions of the devil who are responsible for the utmost evil malevolence, you know, evil unclean spirits. That's not entirely how Mesopotamians viewed demons, because the figure of Pazuzu, yes, was responsible for evil and destruction, but also, like, he was like the king of the wind demons, and he had the power of the southwest winds, which that could cause destruction, or it could blow away locusts and stuff like that. And also, in a weird sort of twist of fate, for lack of a better term, Pazuzu was also seen as the protector of pregnant women, because he was able to fight off other malevolent spirits, other demons who would attack pregnant women. So you'd see in ancient Mesopotamia, women would wear amulets with his image that would signify, I'm pregnant, Pazuzu, please protect me from these other demons who could cause a miscarriage or complications in the pregnancy. So even though he's a demon, he was a protective entity, a protective figure, a pagan figure who people would appeal to for help. So that's not really how us in Western civilization viewed demons or demonic activity, but that was the reality of people in Mesopotamia. They believed that appealing to this particular demon, the king of the wind demons, protect us from other demons who would prey upon pregnant women, or use your power of the southwest wind to blow away locusts. But to be fair, those winds sometimes would cause plagues. I digress. It's a whole interesting thing. I actually really recommend you look into the history of the figure of Pazuzu. It's an interesting thing. It's very fascinating. Like I said, Mesopotamia is very fascinating. It's not, again, not really how we Christians or Western civilization inhabitants view demons or demonic activity. But in the end, like, I guess it does really fall back into the Christian belief, the Christian teaching that, I think it was St. Paul who said pagan figures and pagan gods from other pagan beliefs are actually just demons in disguise. So I think even having that connection is still very interesting to the movie. So anyway, getting back to the film, the scene where Marin, he's digging in that spot and he's dusting off his find and he realizes that it's Pazuzu. You know, he realizes he just uncovered an icon of Pazuzu. Like, that was a perfect scene. The music, it slowly builds. It's tension-filled. It's eerie. It's unsettling. And then the face he makes when he realizes that this is the demon was brilliant. Because Marin faced off against this demon. We don't know this now, but we learn it later in the movie that Marin faced off against the demon in the past.
12 years ago, I think, in Africa. The exorcism supposedly lasted months. Heard it damn near killed him.
And he's experienced because he was an exorcist, or he is an exorcist. And so him realizing, like, oh my gosh, I know who this is. I know what this is. That was brilliant because it foreshadows what's to come. Especially that scene, that unsettling scene where the dogs are fighting and then he looks at the bigger statue of Pazuzu and the sun's setting on it and it just sees his face, like he's just staring. He just knows, like, yeah, he's back. This is just foreshadowing the events of the movie. Like I said, the whole opening scene in Iraq, it's one of my favorite parts of the film. It sets the stage for the rest of the film. The editing, the direction, the camera close-up angles, the panning, all of it was just really cool, really brilliant, and it's an amazing opening sequence. So let's talk about the character of Lancaster Marin. Guys, Lancaster Marin, he's a very interesting character. He's the title character, he's the main character, but the fact is, he's barely in the movie. Realistically, our main character, he's absent for the vast majority of the film. We see him in the beginning for a little bit, where he's digging up that site in Nineveh, Iraq. And then we see him at the end when he comes back to perform the exorcism. However, the guy makes up for his lack of screen time with his powerful presence.
Cocksucker. Be silent.
It's like this guy's destiny is tied with Pazuzu. He only is seen when Pazuzu's presence emerges. The guy, I mean, his presence is really, really strong, especially considering the fact that he projects this aura of spiritual authority.
I cast you out!
Get it up your ass!
In the name of our Lord Jesus Christ!
Like, he just commands the total respect of the audience, and he is the perfect match to do spiritual battle with the demon.
The blood of the martyrs commands you.
Not to mention, the beginning of the film, it actually establishes the character of Regan very well, in my opinion. Like, we as the audience, we see that she's this adorable, sweet, cute little innocent kid who's got a great relationship with her mom, which makes the transition from her being a normal kid to possessed by the demon much more tragic and horrifying. Plus, that Ouija board being the source of the demon's presence, that was just a small, subtle move, but genius at the same time. Our malevolent spirit, this demon, disguises itself as a friendly entity known as Captain Howdy, and this Captain Howdy tricks Regan into lowering her guard, and this just leads the way for the infestation to happen. And by that point, it's too late. Again, genius stuff for the film. Because they always told us in CCD or in the church, the priest would always tell us, guys, never play with a Ouija board. I can't tell you the amount of times priests would always tell us that it's dangerous to play with a Ouija board because if you do, you open yourself up, you make yourself vulnerable for a demonic attachment. So it's needless to say that Catholics, they're warned, don't ever play with one. Never play with a Ouija board. So seeing that small little detail, that scene with her and her mom, like Captain Howdy, that isn't very nice. It just brings back all those memories of priests giving us warnings or telling like real life stories of people who were possessed by playing with the Ouija board. Not to mention like the subtle symptoms of the demonic infestation throughout the McNeil house was actually pretty brilliant, and it unfolded in a way that was, in my opinion, pretty legit. First, it was minor disturbances, then it escalates into more malevolent things. Brilliant stuff. I keep saying it, guys, this is a brilliant movie. And if you actually look closely, there are many shots throughout the film where you can actually see the demon face. Like, there are multiple split-second frames where if you pay close attention, it's a small, brief detail, you can see the demon face showing itself. It's a small detail, you have to pay attention for it, but that's shown at different stages and different progressions of this possession. You see it showing itself, and that's a really cool small detail, like an Easter egg, you know, like you gotta be eagle-eyed to see it. I really love that detail about the movie. I'd say my personal favorite example of that was, you know, the scene where Regan's getting her first medical examination. She's lying on the bed, and then the face, like the demon manifests, and you see the face briefly, really quick, and then Regan's eyes just open with terror. You basically know at that point, like, yeah, the demon's got her. And then after that, we just see that her behavior starts to alter, and she starts acting very strange, but that increases throughout the film. Her increasingly bizarre behavior, that was just a brilliant transition. Like, it started with her in the examination room, kind of acting strange or cursing at the doctors, but then it escalated to her telling an astronaut he was gonna die in space, and then she peed on the floor. And then it escalates to her just straight up attacking doctors, and then screaming violent obscenities. That one line where Regan says, "Mother, what's wrong with me?" Guys, that was really heavy, and you can also see that it takes a physical toll on her body. We see this poor kid just deteriorating in front of our eyes. Little by little, she gets worse. First, it's like dry lips, and then she's got like bags under her eyes. But then you see those scratches on her face from all those self-inflicted injuries. And then the moment we see her tied to the bed, like the first time we see her like that, we see how far she's deteriorated.
Well, then let's introduce ourselves. I'm Damien Karras. And I ain't that devil.
That was straight up horrifying, and her raspy voice is just beyond disturbing. And that first meeting between Regan and Father Karras, that was just a really interesting scene. It was really intense, and the dialogue and the exchange back and forth, I don't know, there's something about it that just, it's very fascinating. But it's not just that, like the other meetings between Regan and Father Karras, it was all just very interesting. However, guys, one of the best scenes in the movie, super intense, very thrilling, very interesting, exciting. It has nothing to do with scares or horror or like demonic possession, but it was rather a conversation between Detective Kinderman and Chris McNeil. So basically in the movie director, Burke Dennings, he dies, and the circumstances of his death, they're not normal. It's not like a simple, he fell down the stairs and died. So Kinderman's investigating the death. He's having a conversation with Chris McNeil, and he's not making an accusation. He's not accusing anyone of anything. He's just merely just talking and suggesting, well, hang on a second. This lends credibility to this. This suggests this. And through the power of suggestion alone, not accusations, he lets Chris and the audience know that Regan killed Burke Dennings under the influence of the demon, and Chris is sitting there all fidgeting and panicky and kind of like, oh my god, I'm paranoid. Oh, it was a brilliant scene. It was just them talking, and through the course of that conversation, it unfolds the details of the case that Reagan killed Burke Dennings, which just elevates the tension and escalates the situation to much more dire, and that was an awesome scene. So another aspect of this movie that I love is how accurate they get demonic possession, how accurately they portray it. You know, growing up Catholic, you know, going to CCD and learning from the priest, you learn a lot about demonic possession and exorcism. So to me, the details in the movie actually line up with authentic cases of exorcisms and authentic possessions that have happened, and I think the movie portrayed it very accurately. For example, like one of the symptoms of someone being possessed is they're speaking language that they don't know. So the scene where Karis and Reagan are having that conversation in Latin and French.
Mirabile dictu, don't you agree? Ego te absolvo. Quod nomen mihi est?
That's a symptom of possession that's real.
Quod nomen mihi est? La plume de matant.
Another thing, abnormal strength. We see Reagan effortlessly launch a doctor across the room when she punches him in the face.
Keep away!
Also, the demon won't always manifest at all times, so we have moments where Reagan is herself and then the demon manifests, and that's pretty legit. So like when she's hypnotized and the hypnotist asks Captain Howdy to come forth, her appearance alters and a nasty odor emerges, and then she attacks the man. That's pretty common in demonic possession cases. But also, you know, the victim having knowledge of things that they'd have no business knowing. Like, it's impossible for them to know this sort of thing. Reagan knew about Karis's mother. She knew that Marin was on the premise when she didn't even know he was coming, and then she screams out his name.
It's an honor to meet you, Father.
When he enters the house and she screams his name, that was pretty legit. Also, like her having unnatural movements of her body, like her contorting and having those spasms and spinning her head. Just listen to a real life exorcist who does explain that that is something that does happen.
And then you see these contortions and head spinning.
Okay, when you say spinning, what does that mean?
Just turning in a what you would consider to be humanly impossible.
All the way around, like 360 degrees?
Not 360. No,
Okay.
I didn't see that.
Crazy about just moving your head back and forth.
Oh no, but even more so than that.
Oh.
Almost like where you can like
look behind
even
yourself.
almost look behind. Yeah.
Not to mention the aversion to sacred objects. Like during the exorcism scene, Reagan vomited when Marin touched her with his stole. And then throughout that whole scene, she's writhing in agony as Marin's sprinkling her with holy water.
God the Son commands you.
And most of all, the displays of supernatural power, such as levitating or being able to move inanimate objects without touching them. So I think the movie did a pretty good job in accurately showing the symptoms of possession in a realistic way. But guys, this movie is just fascinating. It's just a fascinating movie. It's the thing, like, humans are just fascinated by the strange, dark, and mysterious. That's why Mr. Ballin is so popular. People like this sort of thing. It appeals to certain curiosities that we as human beings have. And the idea, the concept of demonic possession, it just fascinates people. It's weird, but it's true. It's a fascinating subject to a lot of people. The way the demon talks to Karis, and how the demon says an exorcism would bring them closer together. You know, here's the thing. I dare you to watch this movie or the other one, The Exorcism of Emily Rose, and then not look up the real life cases that inspired those movies. I dare you. You can't do it because it's just us as humans are fascinated by this sort of thing. Or another thing, like another fascinating exchange of dialogue was when Reagan said, undo one of these straps, and Karis is like, well, if you're the devil, you can make them disappear, and the response is, that's much too vulgar display of power. That's just a really interesting exchange between one of our heroes and the villain.
If you're the devil, why not make the straps disappear?
That's much too vulgar display of power, Karis.
Guys, it's the sort of thing that makes the movie really interesting to watch. Like, it glues you to the screen. It is a slow starting movie, I'll admit that, but once you get hooked in, your attention is captivated and you can't stop. Fascinating movie. And guys, the final scene with the exorcism was epic and incredible. The way the stage was set for the showdown, I mean, you hear Reagan groaning upstairs like a caged monster, and then you see the priest downstairs, they're gearing up for battle, they're preparing. And I think, guys, my favorite line from the whole movie is like the two priests, they're getting ready to do the battle with the demon, and Karis says that he wants to share the details of the case, and he's like, I think there might be 3 personalities, and Marin's like, he just interrupts and he's quick to say, there's only one.
So far, I'd say there seem to be three. She's convinced that
There's
she's...
only one.
But when they don their priestly uniforms, they arm themselves with the Roman ritual and the holy water, and they're slowly walking up the stairs. Guys, that was epic, and I always get shivers. I always get shivers watching this scene. Literally, two holy warriors are about to do battle with a minion of Satan. It's good versus evil. It is a climactic spiritual showdown that will, even if you aren't religious, I still think you can appreciate the setup of the scene. I still think you can appreciate the way it was crafted and just the nature, the adversarial nature between Regan and Lancaster Marin. Like, you see Regan like staring intently as Marin is coming into the house. Just an epic scene. Guys, plus the exorcism itself, like you see the demon is resisting, is causing the windows and the doors to slam shut.
You plunge the heights of heaven to the depths of hell!
She's cracking the ceiling.
It is he who commands you!
Levitating, trying to distract the priests.
Don't listen.
Why, Dimmy?
Damien.
Like, that was really crazy. And you could just see the malevolent spirit's attempts to just scare the priest and resist. This whole sequence was just unbelievable. But guys, all of this would mean nothing if it wasn't for William Friedkin's brilliant direction. The way he was able to edit the film with those cuts back and forth, and those close-ups and those intense panning shots, those camera angles, guys, that was all brilliant work behind the camera. And not just that, the dim lighting, the eerie mist, and that overall atmosphere of when Marin arrived to the house. Like, visually, that's actually the stuff of movie legend. The fact that the air was dark and gloomy and misty, guys, genius. And I really love that over-the-shoulder shot where he knocks on the door, he's like seen in the dark and it's kind of misty, and then Chris opens the door. You don't even see his face, you just see his dark outline. He's like, I'm Father Marin.
Mrs. McNeil.
Yes.
I'm Father Mary.
Guys, I love that shot. Visually, that was just an incredible shot. Like, we were already introduced to him in Iraq, but like, that's like a second double introduction. Like, we already know that he's an archaeologist type who likes to dig things up, but then we just see him in a whole nother light, literally and metaphorically, because he's not just a priest who is an archaeologist. He's also an exorcist. Like, he's a force to be reckoned with, and that was a brilliant shot. It's weird to say, but this was a visually stunning movie. The direction, the techniques, and all of that stuff. And guys, the performances, my gosh, they were all stellar. All the actors who were in this movie came to play. I don't think anyone phoned it in. Even the minor characters still performed their parts very, very well. So not only is it one of the best acted movies ever, it's one of the best directed movies ever. Do I even have to say it? The special effects for the film looked amazing. They look amazing now. I can only imagine how an audience in the 1970s felt. And I think this movie has one of the best scenes in cinema history. You know, it's the scene where Father Karras is having a breakdown. The demon recognizes that he's the weak link. He's the weakest link in the chain, and attacking Karras is the best way to stall or defeat the attempt at an exorcism. So Karras has that breakdown.
You're not my mother!
Dimmy, please.
He's crying, and then Marin's just like, get out. He kicks him out.
Get out.
Karras is downstairs. He's kind of like disheveled and looking upset. Then Chris, she comes around the corner to talk with him, and that reinvigorates him. He's reinvigorated to go back into the room. And when he goes back into the room, he finds that Father Marin has died because he has succumbed to his heart condition and he's dead. So in a desperate, frantic attempt to revive him, Regan starts chuckling and laughing.
You son of a bitch!
And in a fit of rage, Karras grabs her, throws her off the bed, starts wailing on her, which is kind of weird seeing a priest punch a kid like that. But for the aspect of the scene, it was still just crazy. And then he's telling the demon to possess him. He's allowing the demon to come into him. When the transition happens, like, you just see and he spasms and then he falls back. And then you hear those groaning pig noises. Which was actually, like, brilliant because it's a reference to the story in the Bible, the New Testament, where Jesus performs an exorcism on Legion and allows the demons to possess pigs. I thought that was a pretty brilliant, subtle little thing. But anyway, like, you see the demon has full on taken over Karras. His eyes are all nasty. He's about to go in to attack Reagan. Reagan's panicking on the floor, but with the last remaining reserve of strength and willpower, Karras manages to subdue the demon long enough for him to get control over his body and sacrifice himself by jumping out the window. So in the process, he defeats the demon by banishing it. He dies, she's saved. Amazing sequence. So that scene was super powerful, and it was a roller coaster of emotions. But, guys, yeah, that's my opinion on The Exorcist. I think it's a brilliant movie. I think it's one of the best movies of all time, and I think it's immortal. It will stand the test of time. It'll always live forever, because the fact of the matter is this: it's a great movie for any time period. It was great then. It's great now. It has significantly impacted pop culture and the horror genre. You could just see the influence this film has on other films, the inspiration that people have taken from this movie. It is on point. It's very clear. Guys, this movie will live forever. It is immortal. Great film. It's truly great. Not only is it considered one of the scariest movies ever, but I really do believe that at the heart of this film, there is a legitimate Christian message.
I think of it as a shock treatment.
So guys, that's all I have for you. The Exorcist. What did you think about it? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? Well, anyway, comment below to let me know. Also, be sure to like and subscribe. Guys, remember, one like, it goes a long way. It really helps me out. And subscribing to the channel, it's totally free. It costs you nothing. And, oh yeah, by the way, check me out on Instagram. That will be linked in the description below. Give me a follow there. And that's all I have for you guys. And I'll see you on the next Unpopular Opinion.
I lied. It's for me.